The hospital ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its white hull reflected the distant stars and huge red crosses marked its sides. Anyone who saw it would know immediately what it was. The ship broadcast its medical status on every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy. This was the Compassion's hand, and it carried no weapons. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge watching the screens that showed the space around them. He was 50 years old, with gray in his hair and deep lines around his eyes. Those lines came from years of seeing pain and helping people through it. He had been a military officer once, commanding warships and fighting in battles. But that life had ended 15 years ago. Now he saved lives instead of taking them. The ship hummed with activity. In the medical bays below, doctors and nurses moved between beds. Some patients were coalition soldiers, injured in the endless border wars. Others were civilians, refugees who had fled from burning colonies. In the secured ward, even Vrex prisoners of war received treatment. The Vrex were the enemy, the aggressive species that had been attacking coalition space for decades. But on this ship, that did not matter. Dr. Hana walked onto the bridge. She looked tired. Her medical coat had bloodstains on it, and her dark hair was pulled back in a messy knot. "She had been in surgery for 6 hours, Captain," she said quietly. "The Vrex soldier in Bay 3 is stable. He'll live." Jiwoo nodded. "Good work, Doctor." "His people tried to kill him," Hana said, shaking her head. "They bombed his transport during a retreat. We pulled him from the wreckage. Now we've saved his life." She paused. "Do you think he'll remember that?" "Maybe," Jiwoo said. "Maybe not. But we'll remember. That's what matters." Hana smiled a little. She often said that pain did not have a flag. Suffering was suffering, no matter which side someone fought for. That belief had brought her to this ship, far from the comfortable hospitals of Earth. Out here, she could make a real difference. Lieutenant Minho approached them. He was the security officer, a broad-shouldered man in his 30s with a serious face. He had been Special Forces before joining the medical fleet. Unlike the captain and doctor, he still thought like a soldier. "Captain, we're getting close to the disputed zone," Minho said. "I recommend we change course." 3 Vrex ships were spotted in this sector yesterday. Jiwoo considered this. The disputed zone was dangerous. Both sides claimed it, and neither side controlled it. Ships disappeared there sometimes, but the refugees they were supposed to pick up were in that zone on a damaged colony station. "We maintain course," Jiwoo said. "Those people need us." Minho's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He did not like it, but he understood. This was a hospital ship. Danger came with the job. At her station, Ensign Yuna monitored the communication channels. She was young, only 23, with bright eyes and quick hands. She had joined the fleet because she believed in what they did. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition 30 years ago, and Yuna's generation had grown up dreaming of the stars. She wanted to be part of something bigger than herself. "Captain," Yuna said suddenly, "I'm picking up a distress signal." "It's weak, but it's there. Location?" Jiwoo asked. 2 million kilometers ahead. "The signal is Vrex." The bridge went quiet. Everyone looked at the captain. "It could be a trap," Minho said immediately. "The Vrex use false distress calls. They lure in rescue ships and destroy them." "It could also be real," Hana said. "If someone is hurt out there, we have to help." Jiwoo stared at the main screen. This was always the hardest part of command. Every decision carried weight. Every choice could mean life or death. "We're a hospital ship," he said finally. "We respond to distress calls. All of them. Helm change course. Approach carefully. Minho shields to maximum. Yuna broadcast our medical status continuously." The Compassion's hand turned toward the signal. As they got closer, sensors picked up a small Vrex scout ship. It was damaged, leaking atmosphere. The distress call was real. "No other ships in range," Minho reported. "But that doesn't mean they're not there. Vrex stealth technology is good. Prepare to bring survivors aboard," Jiwoo ordered. "Medical teams to Airlock 3. The scout ship had 3 Vrex aboard. They were injured but alive. Human medics brought them onto the Compassion's hand and rushed them to the medical bay. One of them kept trying to fight even though he was bleeding badly. He seemed terrified of the humans. "It's okay," Hana told him in the Vrex language. She had learned it specifically for moments like this. "We're doctors. We help people. You're safe now." The Vrex stopped struggling. His large eyes stared at her in confusion. His people and her people were enemies. Why would she help him? But Hana was already working, sealing his wounds, stabilizing his condition. Around her, other medical staff did the same for the other two Vreks. Within an hour, all three were stable and resting. Jiwoo visited the medical bay afterward. He looked at the three Vreks in their beds. They watched him with suspicious eyes. "You attacked my ship once," one of them said in broken Coalition standard. "Why you help now?" "Because you needed help," Jiwoo said simply. "That's enough reason." He left the bay and returned to the bridge. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it, but his instincts were telling him to be careful. Years of command had taught him to trust those instincts. "Minho, run a full sensor sweep," he ordered. "Maximum range." Minho worked his console. His face went pale. "Captain," he said slowly, "I'm reading multiple ships decloaking around us. Vrex warships. 6 of them." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Red alert lights flashed. Officers moved to emergency stations. On the main screen, 6 massive Vrex warships appeared, surrounding the Compassion's Hand like predators circling prey. "Raise shields," Jiwoo ordered, even though he knew their shields were weak. Hospital ships were not built for combat. "Broadcast our medical status on all frequencies. Make sure they know we're protected under galactic law." Yuna's hands flew across her console. "Broadcasting now, Captain." No response from the Vrex ships. Then a message came through. The voice was harsh, speaking Coalition standard with a thick Vrex accent. "Human vessel. You harbor our enemies. You die." Jiwoo felt ice in his stomach. "This is Captain Jiwoo of the hospital ship Compassion's Hand. We are a medical vessel under the protection of Coalition law and Galactic Convention. We have wounded aboard, including your own people. We are not a military target." Silence answered him. Then the Vrex weapons powered up. Jiwoo could see it on the sensors, energy building in their plasma cannons. "They're going to fire," Minho said, disbelief in his voice. "They're actually going to fire on a hospital ship." "Evasive maneuvers," Jiwoo ordered, knowing it was useless. The Compassion's Hand was too big, too slow. "All hands brace for impact. Emergency teams to..." The first plasma torpedo hit the port side. The ship shuddered violently. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered. "Medical Bay 3 is breached," someone shouted. "We're losing atmosphere in sections 5 through 7. More torpedoes struck. The ship's frame groaned under the assault. On the medical decks, patients and staff were thrown from their feet. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but not fast enough. Dozens of people were trapped in sections that were already flooding or losing air. Hana was in Surgery Bay 2 when the explosions started. The patient on her table was a young Coalition soldier, barely 20 years old. She had been repairing damage to his spine. The ship shook and her instruments went flying. "Everyone hold on," she shouted. Then another explosion, closer this time. The ceiling buckled. Hana had just enough time to throw herself over her patient before debris rained down on them. The last thing she felt was a sharp pain in her back. Then nothing. On the bridge, Jiwoo pulled himself up from the floor. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. Half the consoles were dead. The main screen showed flames and destruction throughout the ship. "Yuna, get those distress signals out," he ordered. His voice was calm even now. A captain stayed calm. "Tell anyone listening what's happening here." Yuna's station was damaged, but she worked frantically to boost the signal. "Sending now, Captain." Continuous broadcast. "The black box is recording everything." Another hit. The ship listed to one side. Gravity generators were failing. "Hull breach on the command deck," Minho reported. His voice was tight with pain. A piece of metal was embedded in his shoulder, but he stayed at his post. "Captain, we need to evacuate." "No," Jiwoo said. "We stay, we keep broadcasting. The galaxy needs to know what happened here." He activated the black box, ensuring it would survive even if the ship did not. The truth would survive. That was all he could do now. A final massive explosion tore through the engineering section. The ship's power died. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red. Jiwoo looked around his bridge. At Yuna, still trying to send their final message. At Minho, bleeding but refusing to leave his post. At all the crew members who had chosen to serve on a hospital ship, who had dedicated their lives to helping others. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. The bridge took a direct hit. The hull split open. In an instant, atmosphere rushed out into space. Captain Jiwoo's last thought was of the 3,000 people aboard his ship. Doctors and nurses, patients from a dozen different species, even the Vrex prisoners they had saved. all of them dying because someone had decided that mercy was weakness. The Compassion's hand broke apart slowly, pieces of it drifting in the darkness. Of the 3,000 souls aboard, only 247 would survive, rescued hours later by a coalition patrol that arrived too late to help. The galaxy would learn what happened. The black box would tell the story. But for now, in the cold silence of space, the hospital ship was gone, and humanity's mercy died with it. The news reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, every human in the galaxy had seen the footage. The black box from the Compassion's hand had survived the destruction, and it told the complete story. Every moment was recorded, every plea for mercy, every life lost. The video played on every screen across human space. People watched Captain Jiwoo's final moments. They saw Dr. Hana die protecting her patient. They heard Ensign Yuna's last transmission, her young voice steady even as her world ended around her. They witnessed the Vrex warships firing on a clearly marked hospital ship, destroying it without hesitation or remorse. Humans watched, and something changed inside them. President Soman sat in her office on Earth, staring at reports from across human space. She was 60 years old, with silver hair and a face that usually showed warmth. Now her expression was carved from stone. She had spent 30 years in diplomacy, always believing that words could solve problems. She had dedicated her life to building bridges between species. The reports on her desk told a different story now. Across every human world, people were gathering in silence. Millions stood in city squares, not speaking, just standing together. Flags lowered to half position. Schools closed. Businesses shut down. An entire species had stopped moving, frozen in collective grief. Her assistant entered quietly. "Madam President, the Coalition Council is calling again. They want to schedule a meeting to discuss the response." "Tell them I'll call them back," Soman said. "They're quite insistent. They say this is urgent." Soman looked up. "Tell them that humanity is in mourning. We will respond when we're ready." The assistant left. Soman turned back to the window, looking out at the silent city below. She knew what was coming. She had already given the orders. But first, humanity would grieve. Admiral Taewon stood in the command center of the Human Defense Fleet headquarters. He was a tall man, lean and sharp-edged like a knife. His hair was completely gray and his eyes missed nothing. Around him, dozens of officers worked at stations, coordinating movements across human military space. "Admiral, the last carrier group has reported in," an officer said. "All units are in position." "Good," Taewon said. "Maintain communication silence. No transponder signals. If coalition ships try to track us, I want them to find nothing." He looked at the massive holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Vrex military installations. There were dozens of them, spread across 14 star systems. Each one had been studied, analyzed, and targeted. Human intelligence had been gathering this data for years, just in case. No one had expected to need it like this. General Daeho entered the command center. He was shorter than the admiral, but something about him made people step back. He had cold eyes and hands that were never still. He commanded human special operations, the units that did the jobs no one talked about. "My teams are ready," Daeho said simply. "Give the word and we go." "Not yet," Taewon replied. "First we let them think they've won." Across the galaxy, the Coalition Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 30 different species gathered to discuss the attack on the Compassion's hand. Most of them were genuinely horrified by what had happened. Some were not. "This is a tragedy," one alien counselor said. "But we must respond with diplomacy, not violence. We should impose sanctions on the Vrex, perhaps a trade embargo." "Sanctions?" another counselor asked. "They destroyed a hospital ship. They murdered healers. This requires a stronger response. What would you suggest? War over one ship?" It was not just one ship. It was a clear violation of galactic law. Medical vessels are protected. If we don't respond strongly, what message does that send? The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted harsh penalties. Others worried about escalating the conflict with the Vrex. All of them agreed that something had to be done, but no one could agree on what. Then the human ambassador, a woman named Minji, stood up. The council chamber went quiet. "Humanity appreciates the council's concern," she said calmly. "We will handle our response internally. There is no need for the council to take action." "Ambassador," the council leader said carefully, This is a matter for all of us. The Vrex attacked under our watch. We must do nothing, Minji interrupted. This is between humanity and the Vrex. We ask only that the Council not interfere. She left the chamber. Behind her, the alien counselors looked at each other in confusion. What does that mean? One of them asked. I don't know, another replied. But I don't like it. The Vrex Dominion was celebrating. News of the hospital ship's destruction had spread quickly. Vrex citizens saw it as a great victory. Their military had struck a blow against the weak humans. The prey species that hid behind medical ships had been taught a lesson. The Vrex High Command issued a public statement. It was broadcast across the galaxy. The human vessel was harboring criminals and military assets, the statement read. It was a legitimate target. The Vrex Dominion does not recognize so-called medical neutrality during wartime. Any ship in combat zones is subject to attack. The humans are weak prey who cannot fight. They hide behind laws and treaties. Today, they learned that strength is the only law that matters. The statement was meant to intimidate. Instead, it sealed the Vrex's fate. On Earth, a nurse named Hyeji sat in a hospital room, recovering from her injuries. She was one of the survivors from the Compassion's hand. Both her legs were broken and she had burns across her back. But she was alive. A reporter asked to interview her. Hyeji agreed. Tell us what happened, the reporter said gently. Hyeji stared at nothing for a moment. Then she spoke. I was in Medical Bay 6 when the attack started. I was treating a Vrex soldier. His name was Kresh. He'd been wounded in battle and we'd saved his life. He was healing well. He showed me pictures of his family, his spawning group. 7 little ones. He said I was a friend. She paused, tears running down her face. When the ship was hit, the bay started to come apart. I tried to get the patients out, but it was too late. Kresh grabbed my hand. He was terrified. So was I. We held hands as the hull broke open. The last thing I remember was him calling me friend in his language. Then I woke up in a rescue ship. The reporter waited, then asked, Do you have any message for the Vrex? Hyeji's tears stopped. Her face went hard. Dr. Hana used to say that pain doesn't have a flag. She believed we should help everyone, even our enemies. I believed that too. I still do. But the Vrex taught me something else. Mercy is wasted on those who see kindness as weakness. We tried to help them. We saved their people, and they killed us for it. She looked directly into the camera. They called us weak. They'll learn what that word really means. The interview went viral across human space. Millions watched it. Billions saw the pain in her eyes and the steel in her voice. Something crystallized in the human consciousness. An understanding. A decision. 3 days after the attack, human merchant ships began leaving Coalition space. They departed quietly without explanation. Goods stopped flowing. Trade routes went empty. Human businesses in alien cities closed their doors. Human diplomats withdrew from their posts. Embassies shut down. Cultural exchanges were canceled. The Coalition tried to contact human leadership. Their calls were not returned. On the 4th day, human military installations went dark. Every ship, every station, every base stopped transmitting. The human defense fleet, which had been scattered across Coalition space, simply disappeared. Sensors couldn't find them. Communication attempts got no response. Alien intelligence agencies scrambled to understand what was happening. Where had the human fleet gone? They had 17 carriers, 58 cruisers, hundreds of smaller vessels. All of them were gone. They've withdrawn completely, an alien intelligence officer reported to his superiors. It's like they've pulled back inside their own borders. Maybe they're giving up, someone suggested. Maybe the attack broke their spirit. But others, the ones who had studied humanity more carefully, were not so sure. They're too quiet, an old alien admiral said. I've seen this before in my own people's history. This is not retreat, this is preparation. On the 6th day, President Soman made her first public statement since the attack. It was brief. To the Vrex Dominion. You attacked a hospital ship. You murdered healers and those they were healing, including your own people. You called us weak. You will learn the difference between mercy and weakness. This is your only warning. Humanity is not your prey. We are your reckoning. The message ended. No questions were taken. No elaboration was given. Across the galaxy, those who understood humanity felt a chill. Those who didn't understand laughed. The Vrex High Command dismissed the statement publicly. Empty words from a prey species, they announced. Let them come. We will crush them as easily as we crushed their hospital ship. Admiral Tewin received word of the Vrex response. He allowed himself a cold smile. They still don't understand, he said to his staff. They think we're like them. They think we fight for glory or conquest or pride. He turned to the tactical display. They're about to learn that humans fight for something much more dangerous. We fight for justice. He activated the fleet-wide channel. Across human military, space, thousands of officers and crew heard his voice. This is Admiral Tewin. 7 days ago, the Vrex attacked a hospital ship. They killed 3,000 people who were there to help others. They killed healers. They killed patients. They killed our friends and family. The Vrex think this makes them strong. They think mercy is weakness. We're going to teach them otherwise. He paused, looking at the faces on the screens around him. Every person listening had lost someone they knew on the Compassion's hand. Every person understood what was about to happen. We are not conquerors. We are not an empire. We don't fight for territory or resources. But when someone attacks those who heal, when someone murders the innocent, we respond. And when we respond, we do not miss. His voice hardened. Tomorrow, at exactly 0800 hours, humanity's mourning period ends, and the reckoning begins. All ships, prepare for combat operations. This is not revenge. Revenge is emotional and blind. This is justice, and justice is cold, precise, and absolute. He ended the transmission. Around him, officers returned to their stations. Orders were given. Final checks were performed. The human war machine, hidden and silent for 7 days, prepared to strike. In their homes, on their ships, in their stations, humans across the galaxy felt it. The mourning was ending. The silence was breaking. Tomorrow, the Vrex would learn what happened when you struck at those who healed. Tomorrow, humanity would remind the galaxy why mercy was a choice, not a limitation. Tomorrow, the storm would break, and nothing would ever be the same again. The 8th day after the attack began like any other across Vrex space. Military installations operated normally. Warships patrolled their sectors. Commanders reviewed reports and planned their next moves against the coalition. The Vrex felt confident, powerful, untouchable. That confidence lasted exactly 60 seconds after humanity's mourning period ended. At 0800 hours Galactic Standard Time, President Selman's message was broadcast on every frequency, in every language across the entire galaxy. You attacked a hospital ship. You murdered healers and those they were healing. You called us weak. You will learn the difference between mercy and weakness. This is your only warning. Humanity is not your prey. We are your reckoning. The message ended. For exactly 60 seconds, nothing happened. Across the galaxy, people listened to the silence that followed. Then the human fleet decloaked. All of it. Simultaneously. Across 14 Vrex star systems. The Vrex had never seen anything like it. One moment, their sensors showed empty space. The next moment, human warships appeared everywhere. Carriers, cruisers, destroyers. Hundreds of vessels that had been sitting invisible in Vrex territory for days, waiting. Captain Dongyan stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury, a stealth carrier that had been positioned 3 kilometers from a major Vrex shipyard. For 6 days, his ship had sat there completely invisible, watching the enemy work. Now that invisibility ended. All fighters launch, he ordered calmly. Target military installations only. Avoid civilian structures. Engage at will. From the Righteous Fury and dozens of other carriers, fighters poured into space. These were not like the fighters other species used. Human pilots were connected directly to their ships through neural interfaces. Their minds merged with the machines they flew. Each fighter moved as if it was an extension of the pilot's body, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Lieutenant Commander Jisoo led the first attack wing. Her call sign was Reaper, earned during training when she had scored perfect kills in every simulation. Now she was flying for real, and her targets were the shipyards where a third of the Vrex fleet was being built. Reaper Squadron, I have target lock, she said. her voice completely calm. Engaging in 3, 2, 1. Weapons free. Her fighter screamed through space at speeds that would have killed a normal pilot. But Jisoo was not flying the ship. She was the ship. The neural interface made her one with the machine. She felt the weapons charging, felt the targeting systems lock on, felt every system as if it was part of her own body. The missiles launched, precision-guided, each one heading for a specific point in the shipyard structure. The shipyard was massive, kilometers long, with dozens of ships in various stages of construction. But the humans were not aiming at the ships. The first missiles hit the structural supports. Explosions rippled through the framework. Then came the secondary strikes hitting the power generators. The shipyard's lights flickered and died. Without power, without support, the massive structure began to collapse in on itself. Jisoo pulled her fighter away as the shipyard tore itself apart. Behind her, the other fighters in her squadron hit their own targets with the same precision. Within minutes, the shipyard was nothing but debris. Target destroyed, Jisoo reported. 0 civilian casualties. Moving to secondary target. This pattern repeated across all 14 Virex systems. Human forces had studied every target for years. They knew where the military installations were. They knew where civilians lived and worked, and they made sure to hit only military targets. A Vrex commander watched in horror as human forces destroyed his base. He tried to launch fighters, but the humans had already disabled the launch bays. He tried to activate defense systems, but they were offline, sabotaged by something his technicians could not understand. All he could do was watch as precision strikes dismantled his installation piece by piece. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "How did they get so close without us detecting them?" No one had an answer. The Vrex had good sensors, good technology. But human stealth capabilities were something the galaxy had never seen before. Ships that could sit completely invisible for days, fighters that moved too fast to track, weapons that hit with perfect accuracy. The Vrex had called humans weak. Now they were learning their mistake. While the main fleet engaged military targets, General Daeho's special operations teams executed their own missions. Their target was the Vrex homeworld itself, specifically the High Command building where the order to attack the Compassion's Hand had originated. Specialist Kyung-hee led one of the infiltration teams. She was small and quick, with sharp eyes and hands that could bypass any security system. Her team consisted of 12 operators, all of them volunteers. Everyone had lost someone on the hospital ship. The High Command building was supposed to be impenetrable. Energy shields protected it from orbital bombardment. Automated defense systems covered every approach. Elite Vrex guards patrolled every entrance. The building had never been breached. The humans did not use the entrances. Kyung-hee's team used technology that should not have existed. Personal cloaking fields that bent light around them. Molecular destabilizers that let them phase through solid walls. Weapons that could knock out guards without killing them. "Remember the mission," Kyung-hee whispered to her team as they phased through the outer wall. "We want the commanders who gave the order. Everyone else is secondary. Stun only unless they force us to do otherwise." The team moved through the building like ghosts. Guards walked past without seeing them. Security cameras showed nothing. Alarm systems stayed silent. Years of training and the best technology humanity could build made them invisible. They reached the High Command chamber. Inside, 12 Vrex military leaders were in an emergency meeting trying to coordinate their response to the human attack. They had no idea that human commandos were already in the room with them. Kyung-hee deactivated her cloak. The other team members appeared around the room, weapons aimed at the Vrex commanders. "You ordered the attack on the Compassion's Hand," Kyung-hee said in perfect Vrex language. "You murdered healers. You killed patients. You are under arrest for war crimes. You will face justice." For a moment, no one moved. The Vrex commanders stared at the humans in disbelief. How had they gotten here? How had they breached the most secure building on the homeworld? Then one of the commanders reached for a weapon. The others followed. They chose to fight rather than surrender. It was over in seconds. Human weapons fired with perfect accuracy. The Vrex commanders fell, not stunned but dead. They had made their choice. "Command, this is Team 7, Kyung-hee reported calmly. "High Command targets eliminated." They refused to surrender. Exfiltrating now. The team vanished as quickly as they had appeared, phasing back through the walls and disappearing into the city. By the time Vrex security forces entered the chamber, the humans were gone. All that remained were the bodies of the commanders who had ordered the hospital ship attack. Back in space, the battle continued. But it was not really a battle. A battle required two sides fighting. This was an execution. The Vrex fleet tried to respond. Their warships engaged the human forces, but they were too slow, too predictable. Human ships moved in ways that should not have been possible. Human weapons hit with perfect accuracy. Human tactics adapted in real time to every Vrex countermove. A Vrex fleet commander watched his ships die one by one. He had 30 warships under his command. Within an hour, he had 5. The humans were not just defeating them. They were dismantling them with surgical precision. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships jump to hyperspace. We cannot win this." But when his ships tried to jump, they found their hyperspace engines were not responding. The humans had deployed some kind of field that prevented hyperspace travel. There was no escape. The commander opened a channel to the human fleet. "We surrender," he said. "Please, we surrender." The human response was simple. "Power down your weapons. Transmit your crew complement. Prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in your destruction." The Vrex ships powered down. Human boarding teams secured them, taking the crews into custody. Not one Vrex was harmed after they surrendered. The humans were merciless to those who fought, but they followed the rules of war for those who gave up. Across Vrex space, this pattern repeated. Human forces struck with overwhelming precision and power. Military installations fell. Warships were destroyed or captured. Command and control networks were dismantled. In 6 hours, humanity crippled what had been one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. And through it all, they broadcast the same message in Vrex language over and over. "This is what happens when you attack those who heal. This is what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. We are not conquerors. We are retribution." Attached to the message was the full recording from the Compassion's Hands black box. Every Vrex in the galaxy could watch what their military had done. They could see the unprovoked attack. They could hear the pleas for mercy that were ignored. They could witness the murder of healers and patients. Some Vrex were horrified, others were defiant. But all of them understood one thing. Humanity had shown restraint. The humans could have targeted civilian populations. They could have destroyed cities and colonies. They could have done to the Vrex what the Vrex had done to the hospital ship. They chose not to. Every human strike was against military targets. Every attack was precise and controlled. The message was clear. Humanity could have brought total destruction. Instead, they brought justice. In her office on Earth, President Soman watched the reports coming in. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. Military objectives were being achieved. Casualties were minimal, almost entirely limited to Vrex who chose to fight rather than surrender. "Madame President," an aide said, "the Coalition Council is demanding to speak with you. They're very upset that we did not consult them before taking action." Soman allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them I will address them when the operation is complete. Not before." On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Captain Dong Hyun received reports from across the fleet. 80% of Vrex military capability had been neutralized in 6 hours. The remaining 20% was either retreating or surrendering. "Admiral Taewon is ordering all forces to begin consolidation," his communications officer reported. "The main operation is complete." Dong-hyun nodded. Around him, his crew looked tired but satisfied. They had done what they came to do. Justice for the Compassion's Hand. Justice for the 3,000 people who had died while trying to help others. "Stand down from combat alert," Dong-hyun ordered. "Begin recovery operations. And someone send a message to the Vrex. If they want their prisoners back, they need to start negotiating." Across the galaxy, people watched in amazement. In 6 hours, humanity had accomplished what the Coalition had failed to do in decades of warfare. They had broken the Vrex Dominion's military power completely, but more than that, they had done it with precision and control. They had shown overwhelming force while following the rules of war. They had proven that mercy and power were not opposites. The galaxy was learning a lesson. Humanity was patient and kind and generous. They would help anyone who needed help, even their enemies. They would risk their lives to save others. But if you attacked those who healed, if you murdered those who helped, humanity would come for you. And when they came with precision, power, and absolute determination. The Vrex had called humans weak. Now they knew better. Everyone knew better. 2 weeks after humanity's strike, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Vrex Dominion, which had been a major military power for over a century, no longer existed as a fighting force. Their fleet was destroyed or captured. Their military leadership was dead. Their installations were rubble, and humanity had done it in 6 hours. The Coalition Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 30 species gathered, and this time, humans agreed to attend. Ambassador Junho walked into the chamber and took his seat. He was younger than most ambassadors, only 40 years old, but his eyes held the weariness of someone much older. The chamber was silent as he sat down. Every alien representative stared at him, some with fear, some with respect, some with anger. The council leader, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, spoke first. Ambassador Junho, humanity's actions were taken without council approval. You launched a military operation against a sovereign power without consultation or warning. We must discuss this. Junho looked around the chamber slowly. Then he stood. The Vrex attacked a hospital ship, he said quietly. They murdered 3,000 people who were there to help others. They killed healers. They killed patients. They killed our friends, our family, our children, and they did it while laughing at us, calling us weak. He paused, letting his words sink in. We brought this matter to the council's attention. We waited for your response. Do you know what we heard? Debates, discussions, talks about sanctions and diplomatic protests. You were going to send them a strongly worded letter while our dead were still floating in space. An alien counselor stood up. We understand your anger, but there are procedures. There are laws. You cannot what? Yuno interrupted. Cannot defend ourselves? Cannot seek justice for our murdered people? Tell me, counselor, what would your people do if someone attacked your hospital ships? The counselor sat down without answering. You call it a military operation, Junho continued. We call it justice. The Vrex committed a war crime. They violated every principle of medical neutrality, and when given the chance to apologize, to make amends, they instead celebrated and called us prey. So we reminded them what predators really look like. Another counselor spoke up. You destroyed their entire military capability. You struck their homeworld. You killed their leadership. This was not justice. This was vengeance. Junho's expression hardened. If it was vengeance, there would be no Vrex worlds left. If it was vengeance, we would have targeted civilians like they did. If it was vengeance, we would have shown them the same mercy they showed our healers. Which is to say none. He looked at each council member in turn. We showed restraint. Every target was military. Every strike was precise. We could have burned their worlds to ash. We chose not to. That is not vengeance. That is justice tempered with the mercy they did not deserve. The council chamber was silent. No one seemed to know what to say. Finally, Junho spoke again, his voice softer now. Humanity came to the stars to help, to heal, to build. We have medical ships operating in every corner of Coalition space. We have doctors saving lives on 100 different worlds. We have shared our technology, our resources, our knowledge. All we asked was to be allowed to help. He gestured to the empty space where the Vrex representative used to sit. The Vrex taught us something. They taught us that in this galaxy, kindness is sometimes seen as weakness, that helping others makes you a target, that mercy is something to be exploited. His voice grew harder. So we are here to make something very clear. Humanity will continue to help. We will continue to heal. We will continue to show mercy. But we will never again allow healers to be attacked without response, and that response will be absolute. Junho pulled out a data chip and placed it on the table. These are humanity's terms. They are not negotiable. The council leader picked up the chip and reviewed its contents. His expression shifted from neutral to surprised to uncomfortable. These terms are extensive, he said carefully. Read them aloud, Junho said. Everyone should hear. The council leader hesitated, then began to read. 1. All coalition members must recognize absolute medical neutrality. Any attack on medical vessels or facilities will be treated as an act of war against all coalition members. 2. Establishment of an independent war crimes tribunal with authority to prosecute violations. 3. The Vrex government will pay reparations to all families of those killed on the Compassion's hand, regardless of species. 4. Humanity will maintain independent military command but will coordinate with coalition defense when requested. He looked up. There are 17 more provisions, all equally detailed. And all equally non-negotiable, Junho said. You have 48 hours to approve them. If you do not, humanity will withdraw from the coalition entirely. We will close our borders, recall our medical ships, and cease all cooperation. You cannot be serious, a counselor protested. You would abandon the coalition over this? You abandoned us, Junho replied coldly. When the Vrex attacked our hospital ship, where was the coalition? When our healers were dying, where was your response? You gave us words and debates. We learned that we can only rely on ourselves. So yes, if these terms are not met, we will withdraw. You will have to find someone else to provide medical care, someone else to run rescue operations, someone else to heal your wounded. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Species argued with each other. Some supported the human terms. Others thought they were too harsh. But underneath all the debate was a current of fear. Fear of what humanity had become, fear of what they could do. After an hour of discussion, the council leader called for order. The council will vote on humanity's terms, he announced. All those in favor? One by one, hands and appendages rose. Some quickly, some reluctantly. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The terms are accepted, the council leader said. All provisions will be implemented immediately. Junho nodded. Thank you. Humanity will honor its commitments to the coalition. But remember this moment. Remember what happened when someone attacked our healers. It will not happen again. He left the chamber. Behind him, the counselor sat in silence, processing what had just occurred. One alien counselor turned to another. We've made a terrible mistake, he said quietly. What do you mean? We thought we understood humans. We thought they were soft, emotional, irrational. We thought their dedication to helping others made them weak. And now, the counselor gestured to the empty chamber. Now we know the truth. They are not weak. They are not soft. They are perhaps the most dangerous species in the galaxy, precisely because they do not want to be dangerous. They perfect the art of war so thoroughly because they want to minimize suffering. They are warriors who hate warfare, and that makes them unstoppable. Meanwhile, in what remained of Rex space, a new government was forming. The military leaders who had ordered the attack were dead. The warmongers who had celebrated it were gone. What emerged was something different. A civilian leader named Karash addressed the Vrex people. He was old, one of the few politicians who had opposed the militaristic path his people had taken. Our old government brought us to ruin, he said. They attacked those who came to heal. They murdered innocents. They called it strength. They were wrong. He gestured to images of the destroyed military installations. This is what real strength looks like. The humans could have destroyed us completely. They could have taken revenge on every Vrex in the galaxy. They did not. They targeted only those responsible. They showed us mercy we did not deserve. Korash's voice grew firmer. We will accept humanity's terms. We will pay reparations. We will face justice for what was done. And we will build a new Vrex society, one that understands the difference between strength and cruelty. 3 months after the attack, something remarkable happened. A new human hospital ship entered service. It was even larger than the Compassion's Hand, with more medical bays, better equipment, and enhanced capabilities. They named it the New Dawn. Commander Yunji stood on its bridge as the ship prepared for its first mission. She was young for a ship commander, only 35, but she had trained under some of humanity's best officers. She understood what this ship represented. All stations report ready, her first officer said. Yunji nodded. Helm, set course for the Vrex border colonies. They've requested medical assistance. The Vrex colonies? An officer asked, surprised. After what they did? After what their old government did, Yunji corrected. The people there are sick and injured. They need help. That's what we do. As the ship moved toward Vrex space, Yunji looked at the memorial plaque on the bridge wall. It listed every name of those who had died on the Compassion's Hand. 3,000 names, 3,000 reasons to hate. But humanity had chosen a different path. We sail under the same principles as those who came before us, Yunji told her crew. We heal everyone who needs healing. We show mercy even to those who might not deserve it. But we do so now with the knowledge that humanity stands behind us. Anyone who attacks healers will face humanity's full response. She paused, letting that sink in. Dr. Hana used to say that pain doesn't have a flag. She was right. The Vrex people are not our enemies. The ones who attacked us are gone. What remains are just people who need help. The ship jumped to hyperspace, heading toward former enemy territory to provide aid. Hiji, the nurse who had survived the Compassion's Hand, was aboard. She had recovered from her injuries and volunteered immediately for the new dawn. Many people had asked her why. Why would she go back to the same work that had nearly killed her? Why would she help the species that had murdered her friends? Her answer was always the same. Because that's what we do. We help people. All people. If we stop doing that, then they win. Then the attack accomplished its goal. I won't let that happen. As the new dawn arrived at the Vrex colonies, the population watched nervously. They expected revenge. They expected cruelty. They expected humans to treat them the way their own government had treated the hospital ship. Instead, human doctors and nurses came down from the ship and immediately began treating the sick and injured. They worked tirelessly, asking nothing in return. When Vrex civilians asked why humans were helping them, the response was always simple. Because you need help. That's enough. Word spread quickly across Vrex space and beyond. Humans were not conquerors. They were not vengeful. They had struck hard at those responsible for the attack, but now they were back to doing what they did best, helping others. The galaxy watched and learned. Humanity would show mercy. They would heal. They would help. But they would also protect those who healed. Absolutely, without question. Without mercy for those who threatened them. It was a balance that no other species had achieved. The ability to be both kind and terrifying. The wisdom to know when to use each. The Vrex had learned this lesson at terrible cost. The rest of the galaxy learned it by watching. And hospital ships, human and otherwise, sailed through space unmolested, because everyone now understood the price of attacking healers. Everyone understood what humanity would do. 5 years had passed since the attack on the Compassion's Hand. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The incident, and humanity's response to it, had become the defining moment of the century. In schools across Coalition space, children learned about what happened. They learned about the hospital ship that went to help everyone, even its enemies. They learned about the attack that killed 3,000 healers and patients. They learned about humanity's swift and precise justice. It became a story that shaped how an entire generation understood right and wrong. On Earth, in a quiet garden dedicated to those who had died, Hyeji stood before a wall covered in names. She came here every year on the anniversary. She was older now, with gray beginning to show in her hair. Lines had formed around her eyes, but they were good lines, the kind that came from smiling. She was no longer just a nurse. She was now the chief medical officer of the New Dawn, the ship that had replaced the Compassion's Hand. Under her leadership, the ship had treated over 2 million patients from dozens of different species. She had trained hundreds of doctors and nurses, both human and alien, in advanced trauma care. Still talking to them? A voice asked behind her. Hyeji turned to see Admiral Taewon. He was retired now, no longer commanding fleets, but he served as humanity's military liaison to the Coalition, making sure that the rules of war were followed throughout the galaxy. Every year, Hyeji said, I tell them about the patients we've saved, the lives we've touched. I want them to know that what they started continues. Taewon nodded, looking at the names on the wall. They would be proud. You've built something remarkable. We all have, Hyeji replied. Humanity has. The entire galaxy has, it was true. The medical neutrality accords that had been passed after humanity's ultimatum had fundamentally changed galactic warfare. Medical ships and facilities were now completely protected. Any species that violated medical neutrality faced immediate response from all Coalition members, with humanity leading the enforcement. In 5 years, there had been 3 attempts to attack medical vessels. Each time, human forces had responded within hours. Each time, those responsible had been captured and brought to trial. Each time, no one else had been harmed. The message had been consistent and clear: touch the healers and face humanity's full response. The Vrex, who had started it all, were now among the strongest supporters of medical neutrality. Their old dominion was gone, replaced by the Vrex Commonwealth, a democratic federation dedicated to peaceful cooperation. The transformation had been remarkable. Young Vrex citizens grew up learning about the attack on the Compassion's Hand in their schools, but not as something to be proud of. It was taught as their species' greatest shame, a cautionary tale about the cost of seeing kindness as weakness. A massive memorial stood on the Vrex homeworld. It listed every single name from the Compassion's Hand, human and alien and Vrex. The inscription, written in 100 different languages, was simple but powerful. They came to heal us, even us. We murdered them for it. Never again. Every Vrex child visited that memorial as part of their education. They learned that the 3 Vrex prisoners of war who had been aboard the hospital ship had also died in the attack. Their own government had killed them along with the humans who had saved their lives. It was a lesson that shaped an entire generation. In the Coalition Council chambers, Ambassador Junho now served as one of the most influential voices in galactic politics. He had been humanity's representative for 5 years, and in that time, he had helped reshape how the Coalition approached conflict and cooperation. The vote is unanimous, the council leader announced. The expanded medical protection zone will be implemented across all contested territories. Junho nodded with satisfaction. This was the 4th expansion of medical protections in 5 years. Each time the galaxy became a little safer for those who dedicated their lives to helping others. After the meeting, an alien counselor approached him. This was Counselor Vesh, the same being who had once publicly laughed at human emotional weakness. Ambassador, Vesh said quietly, I wanted to say something I should have said years ago. I was wrong about humanity.
We all were. Wrong how?
Junho asked, though he knew the answer. We thought your dedication to helping others made you weak. We thought your compassion was a limitation. We were fools. Vesh gestured to the empty council chamber. You are perhaps the most dangerous species in the galaxy, precisely because you do not wish to be dangerous. You perfect the art of war so thoroughly because you want to end conflicts quickly. You are warriors who hate war, and that makes you unstoppable. Junho considered this. We are not unstoppable. We just refuse to let harm come to those who heal. That is not the same thing. To those who would attack healers, it is exactly the same thing, Vesh replied. And that is why the galaxy is safer now, because everyone knows what humanity will do. In a training facility above Earth, Lieutenant Commander Jisoo was teaching a class of Coalition fighter pilots. Her students came from a dozen different species, all of them learning human combat tactics and techniques. Speed is not about going fast, she told them. Speed is about making decisions faster than your opponent. It's about seeing the battle 2 steps ahead and being there before they know what's happening. A young alien pilot raised an appendage. Instructor Jisoo, is it true that you destroyed an entire shipyard in 6 minutes during the Vrex operation? Jisoo's expression remained neutral. She did not like talking about that day. I followed my orders and did my job. The important thing is that we only targeted military installations. We could have caused much more destruction, but we chose not to. Remember that. Power without control is just violence. Control without power is just words. You need both. The lesson continued, but the young pilot's question reflected something Jisoo saw throughout the galaxy. Humanity's military capabilities had become legendary. Everyone wanted to learn from human tactics, human technology, human training methods. What many did not understand was that humanity's true strength was not in their weapons or ships. It was in their restraint. It was in knowing when to fight and when to heal. It was in the balance between mercy and justice. On a distant trading station, a group of beings from various species sat in a bar, discussing recent events. One of them, a merchant who had witnessed the attack on the Compassion's Hand from a distance, was telling the story to younger beings who had not been there. I saw it happen, the merchant said. I was on a supply run when the Vrex attacked. I saw the hospital ship break apart. I saw the debris field. I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't, one of the younger beings said. No, the merchant agreed. 7 days later, I was in Vrex space on business. One moment, everything was normal. The next moment, human warships were everywhere. I had never seen anything like it. They moved like ghosts, appeared from nowhere, struck with perfect precision. The merchant paused, remembering. But here's what really scared me. They could have destroyed everything. The Vrex had colonies right there, civilian populations. The humans could have hit them all. Instead, they only targeted military sites. Every single strike was controlled, precise, measured. That's when I understood. Humanity wasn't showing off their power. They were showing their restraint. And somehow that was more terrifying. The others nodded. This story in various forms had spread across the galaxy. It had become part of the culture, a modern legend that shaped how species viewed humanity. A popular saying had emerged among coalition species. Never strike a human medical ship. You'll survive the missiles and the fighters. You might even survive the commandos, but you'll never survive what comes after. On the new dawn, Commander Yunji gathered her crew for their weekly meeting. The ship had just completed a mission to a war-torn colony, treating over 3,000 casualties from both sides of the conflict. "Good work, everyone," Yunji said. "We saved a lot of lives this week, both coalition and non-coalition, both sides of the war. That's what we do." A young medical officer raised her hand. "Commander, some people are saying we shouldn't treat enemy combatants, that we should only help coalition members." Yunji shook her head firmly. "Those people don't understand what we're about. Dr. Hana, who died on the Compassion's hand, used to say that pain doesn't have a flag. She was right. When someone is bleeding, when someone is dying, we don't ask which side they fight for. We ask how we can help. That's what makes us healers, not soldiers." She gestured to the memorial plaque on the wall. The people listed there died because they believed in helping everyone. If we start picking and choosing who deserves medical care based on politics or species, then their deaths meant nothing. I won't let that happen. None of us will. The crew nodded in agreement. This was the culture that had developed aboard human medical ships. Help everyone. Ask questions later. Let others worry about politics and sides. The job of healers was to heal. But everyone also knew the other part of the equation. The part that made this possible. Behind every human medical ship sailed an invisible fleet, ready to respond if anyone threatened the healers. It was never discussed openly, but everyone knew it was there. The protection was absolute. On the anniversary of the attack, a ceremony was held at the coordinates where the Compassion's hand had died. Ships from every coalition species attended. Even Vrex vessels joined the memorial fleet, their crews wearing black to honor the dead. The new dawn led the formation. Hyeji, as chief medical officer, gave the keynote address. Her words were broadcast across the galaxy, watched by billions. 5 years ago, 3,000 people died here, she said. They were doctors, nurses, medical staff, and patients. They came from dozens of species. They were there for one reason, to help others. Some were helping coalition members. Some were helping the Vrex, our enemies. To them, it didn't matter. Pain is pain. Suffering is suffering. She paused, looking at the assembled fleet. The Vrex attacked because they thought compassion was weakness. They thought helping others made us vulnerable. They learned they were wrong. Humanity showed them the difference between mercy and weakness. Mercy is a choice made from strength. Weakness is having no choice at all. Hyeji's voice grew stronger. We are still here. Human hospital ships still sail through dangerous space. We still treat everyone who needs help. We still believe that healing transcends politics and war. The attack didn't change that. It never will. She gestured to the memorial fleet around her. But the galaxy has changed. Now everyone understands that medical personnel are protected, that healers are sacred, that those who help others will be defended absolutely. 3,000 people died to teach that lesson. We honor them by making sure it never needs to be taught again. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Then, from each ship in the formation, lights were released into space. 3,000 points of light, one for each person lost. They drifted slowly through the void, creating a constellation of remembrance. Children across the galaxy watched these lights in their night skies. Parents told them the story. Teachers explained the lesson. A new generation learned that helping others was not weakness, but the highest form of strength. In a coalition military academy, an instructor asked his students a question that had become standard in military education. Why do we protect medical personnel absolutely? A young human cadet answered, because if we don't, we become no better than those we fight. Because healers represent the best of what we can be. Because mercy and civilization require that we protect those who help others. Good, the instructor said, but there's another reason. A practical one. An alien cadet spoke up. Because humanity will hunt you down if you don't? The instructor smiled slightly. Not quite. The real reason is this. The moment we start targeting healers, we lose our own humanity. We become monsters. And in becoming monsters, we guarantee that our enemies will do the same. Medical neutrality protects everyone, not just the healers. It was a lesson that had spread from humanity to the entire galaxy. The rules of war existed not to limit the strong, but to protect everyone from the worst of what war could become. As the sun set on Earth in the garden where the names of the dead were written, Hyeji stood one last time before the memorial wall. We did it, She whispered to the names. We built something that lasts. Something that matters. You didn't die for nothing. She turned to leave but paused, looking back. Captain Jiwoo, Dr. Hana, Ensign Yuna, Lieutenant Minho, and everyone else. Your compassion's hand is gone, but your legacy sails on. Every hospital ship. Every healer. Every life saved. That's your legacy, and it will never end. She walked away, leaving the garden as stars began to appear in the sky above. Somewhere in space, the new dawn jumped to hyperspace, heading toward another emergency, another call for help. Its medical bays were ready. Its crew was prepared. Its mission was clear: to heal, to help, to show mercy to all who needed it, protected by the certain knowledge of what would happen to anyone who dared strike at healers. The compassion's hand was gone, but its purpose lived on, not in revenge or fear or violence, but in every life saved, every patient healed, every person who chose to help others even in the face of danger. That was humanity's true legacy, not the 6-hour war that broke an empire, not the precision strikes that brought justice, not the fear that prevented future attacks. The legacy was simpler and more powerful than any of that. The legacy was mercy, backed by the strength to protect it absolutely. The legacy was healing, defended by the certainty of justice. The legacy was the understanding that helping others was not weakness, but the greatest strength any species could possess. And across the galaxy, in 100 different languages and 1,000 different ways, beings repeated the lesson that had been written in fire and starlight 5 years ago. Never strike those who heal. Because humanity protects its healers, and humanity does not miss.